I want to talk a little bit about when you guys first got together, the audition back, Brian, when you joined the band. I was wondering I read recently that you were going and you did a vacuum commercial, picked up a little money, and then went to do the audition.
You know, people keep remembering that bastard. Yes, it was, and yes, it was on the way. I didn't have that much money, you see, and when I was asked to go down, I had to try to. This guy had phoned and I've never done an advert before. Just an old guy from the past. And he said, if you come down, we'll pay you some money. I think it was 35 quid or something. And I said, oh, that should pay for the gas. You know, down to London and back. Yeah. And so, you know, and we went down there. And I'll never forget, you know, I'd done the advert and then I drove across London. Well, it wasn't very far, to a place called Vanilla Studios. Is that right, Angus? Vanilla?
Yeah, you're probably right. Something like Victoria place there.
Yeah, and anyway, I got there and I looked in and it looked the business, you know, guys with hair and beards and, you know, jeans and with holes in and everything. I said, this must be the place. And they were all playing pool downstairs. They were all playing pool. And the cut of my jib, you know, I wasn't dressed like anything except what I was, a working Joe from up north. I started playing pool with them, and it wasn't until the tour manager, a guy called Ian Jeffries, come down and said, has anybody seen that Geordie fella from Newcastle with it? And I said, oh, that's me. He said, they've been waiting for you for an hour upstairs.
Angus, at what point in this audition, I always wondered this, how many guys had you looked at? And obviously you made the incredible, perfect choice, but were there other guys that came in? Was it a long audition process? Like, did that guy from Crocus ever come in? People that were, you know, out there doing this?
No, we never got that guy. No, there were just various people. A lot of people, you know, somebody might recommend somebody. And so there was, you know, basically at the time it was just Malcolm and myself, really. You know, we were there with our guitars, and me and him had been writing songs and stuff. And, you know, so it was just me and Malcolm strumming away there with guitars. And, you know, if they'd say, oh, we get somebody to come in and try, you know, and then we would get, you know, we would just, you know, play away with the two guitars, you know, and see how it would go. And so there was quite a few different people, you know, but I guess it was a case of, you know, who stood out, yeah. And the funny thing is when he walked through the door, Brian stood out just the way he walked. And you sat up and you paid attention, you know. You go, oh, yes, you know. And then he, you know, said hello. You know, how are you and everything. You want, you know, one of the guys get him a cup of, you know, whatever he wanted. If he wanted coffee or something, you know. And you know, and it was a case of, you know, okay, do you know, what do you know any songs by us? And I think he said, yeah, I know. He knew Rosie because he'd been gigging with a band, and you know, and you know, they did a couple of songs, and they did Rosie, and I think did you know? It was Highway to Hell he knew too. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then a few other ones, and I think he. You know, and Mal, I think, said, you want to try something to be, you know, that you're comfortable with or something. Brian said, oh, I'll try, what about Nutbush City Limits, yeah? And off he went, and you know, here he was, and we were banging away on that tune. And, you know, and then we did, you know, like Rosie, tried Rosie with him, and then, Highway to Hell, you know, and he did a great job. You know, we asked if can we just put it on a tape, you know, so we had something, yeah. And, and he said that, and he talked a little bit, and I think he had a beer or two with Mal.
Yeah, we did.
He was going back up north,
Yep.
And Mal said, well, if you mind, if we get you down again at some point, and see. I think it was about a week later or so, Brian came down again, and we got him. And I think the lads, we got the rest of the guys,
Yeah.
and a couple of run-throughs, and then it was again, me and Mal sat there, and I think we tried him. We were jamming on one of our a couple of ideas that we were going to put down an album, and again, and taped to see how it was, and we just said, just scatter away, just do whatever comes in your head if you think, and so we were asking, and asking if he had a contract and everything, and did he, and he was given info what he knew at the time, and then and he was back. And Mal said, well, we'll definitely let you know as soon as we, what we're going to do. We'll get in contact with him. Anyhow, after he left, me and Mal were playing away. And we had the idea, Mal's idea, doing the Back in Black song. And I had suggested to Mal, at the time, I said, I had a piece, it was an older piece that me and him had worked on. And I said, what about if we took that piece, and we'd not used it before, and we try and hook that into that song, for a good singing thing, and I'll give you a singing line for help with Mal. And he said, well, let's hear what you got, right? So we put that little chord idea together, and it was working. Mal seemed happy, and then he said, right, do your little singing, what you hear. And I was doing the Back in Black, and then after it, and as soon as it's kind of went and then going up the scale, I said, Mal, I said, Brian, I said he could hit those notes. I said, he could really hit those notes. And he looked at me and he went. I said, because that's, you could hear it in his registers and what we had done. And I said, and he's got that edge on his voice. And then he went, hey, And I said, and Mutt Lang had also heard what we had. And Mutt also knew another producer guy who had said about Brian's voice, And he said, oh, yeah, Brian's got that breathing thing down pat. He's got it very natural. And Mutt liked that, when we would sing it, in vocalist. And what we thought of, and it was like Brian had ticked, in your head, had ticked all those kind of boxes. And Malcolm went, yeah. And he said, leave it with me. And he got a hold of Brian. And he said, hey, well, how would you like to come and join us then, talk to Brian.
Wow.
So that's really how it come to be,
Yeah, that's great, because I haven't obviously heard that side of the story, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating because I remember the phone call, Angus, from Malcolm, and it was my dad's birthday up in Newcastle. And I had bought my dad a bottle of whiskey for his birthday present, and I went home to my mum and dad's, and there wasn't anybody there. And I went, oh, flipping heck. It was about 2 PM or something, 2:30, and I went, oh, well, I said, I'll just leave it here. And then the phone rang, because Malcolm had my mum's and dad's number, and that was the phone call. And I said to Mal, I remember saying, hang on, are you sure this is not a hoax? He says, no. I said, well, could you ring us back in 10 minutes just to make sure that I'm not dreaming this, And he did, God bless him. And he phoned, now, he says, you fancy coming to the Bahamas? We're making a record and all of this. And I said, well, yeah, yes. He said, I'll get you people to get in touch with you. Okay, he said, I'm off to watch the Grand National on the telly, which is a horse race, you know.
Right.
And I put the phone down and I looked and I was going, there's nobody here. So I opened my father's birthday present and I had a glass of whiskey to celebrate. There wasn't anybody there to tell. It was strange, you know.